and welcome to Sacred Life Baptist Church. My name is Reverend Gray, and I am the senior pastor. And today we'll be continuing on in the lesson of the wickering of the Bible. Today we'll be continuing on about the wickering of the Bible. Last week we came from 2 Timothy. This week we'll be coming from Matthew 24, verse 24. For false Christians and false prophets will arise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. 25. See, I have told you beforehand. 26. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out. Or, look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. So also will the coming of the Son be. Now, last week we were talking about the wickering of the Bible and how people use the Bible to benefit themselves and to hurt you. That's what we were talking about last week. We'll continue on in that same vein. So here we are. I'm going to start with the story. Last week, a couple of weeks ago actually, my wife and I were actually going to the hospital because my youngest son was sick. And so we went down to the hospital and we had to wait because the doctors were in lunchtime, so we had to wait for lunch to be over, which was about 30 to 45 minutes, and then we could go and see the doctor. In that time, what we decided to do was we decided to go and have a little bit of food. You know, we hadn't eaten that day. It was very long. It was very late. So while we were walking, a man started talking to us, and he was a very, very affable man, and he started saying to us all types of things about how just general conversation. He was a really good conversationalist. Come to find out, he's actually a salesman. So he said his line of work was sales and he was selling things. Okay, that's really great. And we thought he was going to give us a sales pitch. So we were waiting for him to say, and this is what I'm selling, and give us a card. But he actually didn't. We ended up talking about religion. Okay, and I am not an apologist. There are great apologists out there, but that's not me. You know, I'm an evangelist sometimes, but an apologist I am not. So he decides to talk to me about religion and talk to my wife about religion. I'm all ears because I'm really interested to hear what each person has to say about their personal beliefs. I'm actually very interested in that. So he starts telling me about how he's more spiritual than he is religious. He's more spiritual than he is religious. And he starts telling us about the dangers of religion and about how all religions are equal. They're all equal. They all go to the same place. They all basically believe the same thing. So why not just believe everything? If you believe everything, then you don't have to believe anything. You can just go ahead and you don't have to pick one particular belief. Instead, you can pick all of the beliefs. So he's spiritual, and he starts telling us about how he's Muslim and he's Christian and he's Buddhist and he does the Kabbalah and he just does, and so he's just a hodgepodge of all of these religions. And then he says he goes to this church which is also more spiritual than religious. So of course, being the good pastor that I am, I invite him to come down to Sacred Life Baptist Church to worship with us, and I give him a card. And he asked me a very important question. He says, this says you're a Baptist. And I said, oh yeah, very much. We are very much Baptist, without a doubt. He goes, are you more spiritual than you are religious? So, oh, without a doubt, we are definitely spiritual. We are spiritual. I mean, there is a spiritual aspect to us. There's a spiritual aspect to our praise and worship. So we are definitely spiritual. But we are also religious. We have a foundation of beliefs that we believe in, and that is our religion. So he starts to go on and on about how religion is evil and it oppresses people. It's an oppression. Religion is a good starting point, but it's not a good ending point, because eventually you must enlighten yourself beyond religion. You must enlighten yourself beyond religion and go to this other place, which is a place of, I guess, knowing all religions as one. So I said, oh, okay. So he made a mistake. Of course, I'm not going to argue the man, but then he asked me, don't you believe that's true? Well, see, now he's asking me a question. See, before all of this, he didn't really ask me a question. He was just telling me statements that I just didn't believe. But when he asked me a question, it is my opportunity to tell him basically what I'm going to tell you. My wife says to me, so I'm talking to him, I'm talking to him. And I'm just breaking down the differences between the religions, how you basically can't have one and believe in the other. You want to be spiritual, but what does that really mean if you're not rooted in a tradition? At the end of this, he then bounds out of the conversation. He doesn't want to talk anymore. He quickly removes himself from the conversation and runs away. It's an amazing thing. Before he was so affable, so wanting to talk, so open, and now that he's confronted with someone that actually has the knowledge to challenge him in some way, and I didn't even challenge him hard. I just kind of raised some questions and some doubts about what it means to be spiritual as opposed to religious. He decides it's time to go. It's time to go, and he leaves. My wife says, man, I really thought he was going to sell us something. He's a salesman. He was setting us up for the pitch. He talked about his children. We talked about our children. He did everything right for a salesman. And then she was like, but he didn't sell us anything. I said, you know what? He did. He was trying to sell us spirituality. That's what he was trying to sell us. He was trying to sell us on the concept that we should be spiritual and not religious. All right, here we are. Here's the major problem here. You've got to choose one. I'm sorry to those people who are spiritual. I'm sorry to those people who are spiritual. I'll tell you right now, this is not one of those pep talks for spirituality. As a matter of fact, this is completely not that. You've got to choose one. You've got to choose a belief. And that belief has to be your foundation. You have to have a foundation. Because if you don't have a foundation, then you can't build a church. You can't build a belief. You can't build anything. Listen to me. If you're going to be Muslim, then be Muslim. If you're going to be Buddhist, then be Buddhist. If you're going to be Christian, then be Christian. If you're going to be Hindu, then be Hindu. But you cannot be all of them at the same time. You can only be one. You can only be one. You can't be a Muslim and a Christian. They just don't jive. You can't be a Buddhist and a Muslim. They just don't jive. You can't be a Christian, a Buddhist, and a Hindu. They just are not the same. So if you were to say on the surface, they're all the same, to a degree that's true. Each one of these religions wants you to live a better life, and they all believe they have the right answer. Of course, being that I'm a Christian, I believe that Christianity is the right answer. And as I've looked at all the other religions, I've looked into Buddhism, and I've found some beautiful things in each and every one of them. So don't get me wrong in saying that I think that Islam is completely a waste of time. That's not true at all. I think that there's some very beautiful parts of Islam that, just like there's some beautiful parts of Hinduism. The problem is, none of these religions actually save your soul. Christianity is the only religion that does that, or at least claims to do that, in a way that we are saying. So, spirituality then, why is it so useful? Why would someone want to push it if it's simply meritless? I'll tell you why. There are many people that are making a whole bunch of money by selling you nothing. Nothing at all. Phony spirituality without a root in religion is absolutely nothing. They're making this money by letting you feel like you have something. It's most like any other con artist. You see, they're giving you what you want to hear, and they're taking from you that which you have, which is your money and, unfortunately, your salvation. So you feel as though, yes, I don't have to give up my beliefs. I don't have to change at all. Matter of fact, I get to gain more beliefs, and I get to just experience the world however I want, and I can live however I want. And if there's something that I don't like, you know what? I can change to do something else. If there's a part of Christianity that doesn't suit my needs at this moment, then I can just not believe that part and believe the Buddhist part. In essence, these people are selling you a bunch of lies. And they're selling that to you at a very, very high price. Because you honestly believe, most people honestly believe when they're spiritual, that they're actually getting something from these people. They're telling you all paths lead to the same place. It's not really true. Now, I'm not saying that I have a lock on who is saved. I don't know. I don't have a hell to put anyone in, and I don't have a heaven to put anyone in. Only Jesus really will know at the very end who will go to heaven and who will go to hell. Having said that, spirituality is telling you a false truth. It's nothing new, though. It's nothing new. Christianity has been dealing with phony people that look like Christians on the surface until you go a little bit deeper, and then you discover that they're nothing like Christianity at all. Back in the day, we're going back to the Marcion age and all of that period, and the first Christians, they had to deal with the belief that was almost as old as they were, called Gnosticism. Now, Gnosticism is a very important part of the Christian heritage. Why? Because Gnosticism helped to frame what Christianity was really about. Because Gnosticism was so prevalent at that time that actual Christians had to come up with a core set of beliefs in order to fight against Gnosticism. Gnosticism, in the same way that phony spirituality is today, looks a lot like Christianity on the surface. But then when you get really deep into it, it was just people that didn't want to accept some of the core beliefs in Christianity. So they completely changed it. They completely changed it to do something that they felt was right, that they felt Christianity was lacking in. What is that, you might say? Well, there was a whole lot of different things, one of which is this body. The body being an evil thing, they believed that they were going to destroy this body in order to set free their spirit. That meant all bodily pleasure was completely out. One of the reasons why Gnosticism actually ended up dying out. Didn't die out completely though, but came close. Because the body was so evil, no one had sex. And if you don't have sex, you don't have babies. That's kind of how it works. So, Gnostics, believing that their body was evil, and believing that every part of their body was evil, believed that the secretion of their body was equally evil. And because their bodies were evil, every time they had a child, they were actually bringing an evil thing into the world. So Gnosticism believed that the body was evil and that they must destroy the body in order to get to the spirit. Likewise, they also didn't believe in Jesus the way we believed in him. They believed that Jesus didn't die on the cross at all. As a matter of fact, it was like a double. It was a whole other person or entity that died on the cross and pretended to be Jesus. Now, this was very prevalent back in the day. So most people who were Gnostics actually believed they were Christians. So the Christians, in answer of this, had to actually set down a core set of beliefs that was very important to fight against the rise of the Gnostics. That's what we're having today. Today, much like back in the day, back when Christians were fighting Gnostics, Christians have to fight against the spirituality. Because people are really believing that they're Christians, but they're a Christian light. Unfortunately, there is no Christian light. Either you're a Christian or you're not a Christian, and there is no middle ground. Either you believe Jesus died on the cross for your sins and rose on the third day, or you simply don't. Every other religion other than Christianity does not believe that. Therefore, you cannot be a Christian in any other religion. Even Islam does not believe Jesus died for your sins. And they're the closest. And then, of course, you got the Jews, which Christianity comes from, the Jewish culture and the Jewish religion. But they don't believe Jesus died on the cross either. So you can't really be a Jew and a Christian. Both of those don't really mesh. They don't mesh. Either you're a Christian or you're not. So I say to you, you have to make a decision. And that decision is a decision that will determine not just how you live on this planet, but also how you spend your eternity. As Jesus says, I'm the truth, the way, you know the rest. The point of the matter is this. If you believe that you are a spiritual person and you do not need Christianity, or you do not need to choose a foundational belief, I'm letting you know that is completely 100% wrong. As a matter of fact, there's no worse thing you can do other than simply just not believing in anything, which is equally as bad. But basically, being a spiritualist, you are believing in nothing. You are believing in nothing. You have no foundation. That is all of my time. I will see you again next time. We'll be continuing to talk about this concept of the wickering of the Bible. Thank you very much, and God be with you.